Making a video. Yeah, I guess it'll be a comments video. So, this was a draft science video. I'll do a quick comment. Somebody did leave a comment, too. There's a comment section now. There will be on future videos. Yeah. Maybe I'll have all the comments go on another thing and it'll all go on the side here or something. I don't know. I haven't decided. So, be some kind of catch like that or something. Anyway, somebody asked, is dark matter a lie? Ooh. I guess my answer would be no, but I think it's dark energy, so I think that's the point. Okay, I think there's energy that isn't visible because is detectable because it's in too small a packet. So there's lots of mass in the universe, quote unquote, that's caught up in energy that hasn't been accounted for because it doesn't belong to an atom. So it's outside the realm, and it doesn't belong to an electron or a neutron or a proton. It just is quanta that's floating about in some sort of relationship, maybe. Maybe it's two little quantas just spinning around each other. Who knows? I'm just saying that I think that's what dark energy is. And dark energy is dark matter, as I see it. That's my answer anyway. I'm sticking to it, kind of a thing. So anyway, interesting videos. Is this really? I should point this thing out. I should do a couple of videos. I think I'll do a video just talking about what a great cartoon this is. But somebody did this great cartoon thing. So, and what I want to do eventually is. What I want to do eventually is maybe I could, somebody could make it looks red drawing. It's really good stuff. He made this little Efilist thing and stuff. It's a funny cartoon character. Yes, it's funny like me. Ha ha ha. Stick his finger. Efilist. I like that. Anyway, but it's just very, very good drawing. He filmed it moving to give it movement and all that kind of stuff. Very clever, very, very good. Just very good stuff. So anyway, bravo. Contentment is wealth. Contentment is wealth. Yeah, okay. Contentment is wealth is his name. Yeah. Kitty icon. But anyway, really good stuff. So yeah, I want to do this as my background image or something on my channel. So I got to do that eventually. But anyway, I like it. So anyway, comments. We'll take care of the inmendum bacteria without brains. So these are the comments on my video. And maybe eventually I'll get to the comments on the other videos. I don't know. It's just so much to do. So little time to do it. So, alright, we'll start off somewhere interesting. Who made the first interesting comment? I don't know. I don't really bother. We're going to colonize Mars in 30 years to balance the deficit of Martians there. Yeah, whatever. We'll colonize Mars with human beings who will go there with all kinds of the same old human dilemma problems, and they're not going to be happy and all that kind of crap, so it's just going to be bullshit. Anyway. Neutrality is perfection, question mark. How so? This is this stupid filmy guy. I don't like him much. How so? Well, I explained it all in the video. It's 40 minutes long. How is hunger necessarily a negative? It's not necessarily a negative, but it manifests as a desire. Okay, so desires are the manifestation of deprivations, correct? And how the mind interprets it or manipulates you through this desire mechanism is sort of the issue, right? So we do know that when these desires are unsatisfied, they do become necessarily negative. Whether they're necessarily negative in substance, in essence, if all desire, if all will to be move from one place to another, to be in some other condition, is negative, I would say as principle it probably is, but are you going to perceive it that way? Probably not, because we're desire machines. So yeah, we're made not to see things and to see other things. We're made to distort reality, not to see reality. Sort of, that's the point. We know why we need food, air, water, because the body needs energy to continue functioning. Yeah, well, we need it because the body has correlated whips and carrots to motivate you to do these things. Right, so it tries carrots, and if carrots don't work, it starts applying whips. I'm arguing that the carrot is essentially made out of creating a tension that always exists inside of you. You're just a tension and anxiety and stress machine. And so that stress is always in need of relief. And the mind just changes what you perceive to be the thing that will relieve your stress, your angst, your worry, your concern, your malus, your malus. Yeah, I just make up a word. Everybody else is. Anyway, because we need other humans for multitasking. Well, I don't even need, but we don't need other humans. That's just nonsense. I've had plenty of perfectly workable fantasies. Then I didn't see really any problem. I didn't need to have a whole bunch of other humans in the fantasy to make it all kind of work out for me. Psychological comfort and survival. Well, whatever. Like I said, all this survival stuff, we definitely need other people for the survival thing, probably. But all this other crap, fuck that. That's just your conditioning. That's what your brain needs. That's what your personality needs. My personality, I could interact with a computer all day and I'd be perfectly satisfied with that. I like computers better than I like human beings, to tell you the fucking truth. So, yeah, I think that's just absolute crap. In what way these hungers are to be satisfied is a question for one's intelligence. Well, duh. I mean, I've only said that about 7,000 times in the video. But you have to, obviously intelligence doesn't do you any good if you've miscalculated what the mechanism is, right? So if you're playing a game like tic-tac-toe, and your intelligence just says, okay, it's a board, I can just put an X here, he put a Y there. But if you don't really have enough intelligence to know, oh, wait a minute, if I do this a certain way, I can prevent myself from ever losing. That there's a trick, a gimmick, and that's really the game here. So you can have enough intelligence to play the game, but if you have even more intelligence, you might know that the game isn't worth playing. That's what we're really talking about. Is that I'm arguing that real intelligence understands that the game isn't worth playing. But whether this circumstance is valuably positive or negative. Alright, picking up where I left off, or somewhere close to it. So that's about intelligence. So yeah, well anyway, intelligence is so part of your brain's motivating you, part of your brain is scheming for solutions to the motivation problem. But whether this circumstance is valuably positive or negative seems like a subjective question. Well, part of it might be a subjective question. I guess what I'm arguing to you is that this mechanism of need doesn't need to exist. That's the underlying argument. And that the real problem is that most of these motivational mechanisms, a huge part of it, is built out of this ego crap. Okay, it's not about food, which you can justify, survival. It's about some sort of ego survival. Survival in the context of I get to be a winner, or I get to have privilege, or I get to have this, or I get to have that, and I don't have to take responsibility for what the price tag is for that. Like vegetarianism and all these other arguments. These are real ethical questions, and it's not a subjective question when you're imposing on somebody else. That's intrinsically and fundamentally no longer subjective. It's now involving somebody else's welfare. Yes, I mean, again, subjective doesn't mean you can't be subjectively stupid. Because you say something is subjective doesn't mean that retards aren't retarded. Anybody can have a stupid opinion and say something stupid, and you can argue it's stupidity. Anyway, yes, biologically pain is bad if you value survival. Yes, biologically pain is bad if you value survival. Well, whatever. Again, valuing survival based on what standards. You can't just say something has value because you are hungry for it. It has to have a broader context than that. And so to argue in defense of your survival, again, isn't an intellectual question, is it, for most people? For most people, they need to exist. Okay? They need it. It's not because they understand it to be a purposeful or useful thing. They just need to do it. And that's a big difference. Calling nature dumb is like calling a computer dumb. No, it isn't. It's absolutely nothing like it. Computers aren't creating. Computers aren't making something happen. They're not responsible for the existence of some like, say, if computers intrinsically, by just existing, were conducting experiments, like there was real squirrels running inside the computer, there were squirrels in there, some sort of welfare was involved in what the computer was doing just by turning the computer on. All of a sudden it'd be an ethical question. It'd be a question about whether the computer knew what it was doing and whether it could calculate whether it was a fair game that it was imposing on those squirrels. Yes, computers are dumb in the same way that they can think outside the box. So they only know rules, but know what to do with exceptions or variables outside of the rules. Can't think outside the box, so they only know rules. Whatever. I mean, they're programmed, so it's not even about knowing rules. They don't know any rules. So one could say, human beings can't think outside of any box either. What is this? Can't think outside the box. Nobody can think outside the box of programs. All right, and you have to have the ingredients go in, and you can cook. Like, say, I could take 5 ingredients, and it'd be there'd be lots of things you could make with those 5 ingredients, lots of different meals. But there's certain things you can't make with them. Alright, so let's not pretend that you can do any of this outside of any kind of box. You can't go outside the ingredients of which your knowledge base permits. You can't play a concerto unless you know something about playing piano. So one could say DNA is dumb in the same sense that the molecule itself doesn't follow good rules, or even its own rules well. The molecule doesn't have rules, so this is just kind of silly. It's not about the DNA molecule per se, it's about the context of a replicating cell over time, controlled by environment, natural selection. The DNA is just another victim, but obviously it's not a victim you care for because it doesn't have a personal welfare. If the DNA was a squirrel, well then we could talk. But it's not, it's just a mechanism. But it's a good place just to go back to and say, look, this is what forms us. But it's not really, strictly speaking, a DNA molecule doesn't do anything. It's just the effect of the cause. So I suppose if nature is dumb, then all things are dumb. Stupid way to phrase something. Quite obviously, simple, functional forces can create complex things. The atmosphere is dynamically simple, but it can create tornadoes. Lots of systems that are simple can create complex effects, eddies in a stream. Yes, we're a filter now. Okay, once you create a replicating molecule and store information on its DNA, okay, as DNA, then you sort of create a filter over time, and that filter becomes much more complex and much more sophisticated than the forces that created it. So again, this isn't like, retarded people can give birth to intelligent people. It's just the way it works. Since all things have spawned from nature, and knowledge is understanding nature. Well, it's not understanding nature, it's describing the truth of reality. Okay, and yes, nature is reality, but we usually use the word nature to describe that which hasn't been tainted by human interference. But regardless, the forces of nature are not intelligent, they're crude. Okay, they're not sophisticated, they're crude. And the only thing that they were able to do was create this eddy, this complexity that is us. because of the circumstance of this replicating molecule. Without the replicating molecule, go look in the rest of the universe. Ain't very complicated. Ain't doing anything very sophisticated. You only get all this complex chemistry when you start doing this replicating DNA thing. So anyway, just this, you're fucking, so you type these two comments like you're some sort of going to make some sort of good point, and there isn't a single good point in here, okay? There isn't a single thing here I haven't already dealt with, so you're just an obnoxious jackass. I mean, either post something truly challenging to my philosophy or give up. Because you never do. You just type this crap as if it means something, and it's all just gibberish and nonsense. And so look how easily I dispelled all this stuff. I just, without even any effort at all. So do better than that, you fucking little troll. Anyway, all right. I do hear what you were saying regarding common language, but philosophy is the creation of concepts. No, you don't create concepts, you discover concepts. Just like you discover categories. You discover the category 2, and you put things with 2-ness in the category 2, or 4-ness in the category 4, and 5-ness in the category 5. You get it? So concepts are just things that are real, and you just identify them. So you recognize a concept, flying, okay, moving through a vaporous atmosphere. And you label it something. And it's a legitimate concept. Things fit into that because they have the property of flying, blah, blah, blah. But you're just basically recognizing the reality. You're not making the reality up. Jeez. Alright, there's a whole bunch of shit with that stupid star of Sagittarius guy. He says somewhere in here he has a master's degree. I mean, there's no point in saying I have a master's degree. Why don't you tell what's a master's degree in what? Toilet engineering? I mean, I don't know. What the fuck? I remember once you were trying to pronounce the, I can't pronounce it either, not off the top of my head, dinucleic acid thingy. You made a mess of it. So, I mean, obviously your master's degree isn't in biology, or you'd know how to say blah blah nucleic acid thing. Anyway, alright, DNA molecule is like a motor in a car. It helps us humans live. Well, that's just stupid. DNA molecule gets more perfect the more it reproduces. More perfect. I mean, it's just such a stupid thing to say. The molecule doesn't get perfect. The molecule is just the short ones are the same as the long ones. It's a simple, crude device. The molecule hasn't really changed in terms of how the molecule functions in billions of years. Okay, the molecule is just the paper that the instructions are written on, in a sense. So that's just a stupid remark. If you want to say the instructions on how to build organisms is getting more perfect, well, that's even a silly thing to say, because for every, the environmental demands obviously have demanded more from the organisms, more skills, more tools, because of the elevating, as it elevates, as the contest elevates, the skill level increases. You have to play a harder and harder game. But that's sort of the point, right? I mean, it's not just that we're gaining more tools. It's just that organisms have to gain more malicious tools and more decisive tools. So some of this stuff gets very negative in terms of what you start creating as survivors. The survivors start to look like cockroaches, fella, and I wouldn't call that exactly perfection. Alright, no, the DNA deteriorates over time. That's why we have hemophilia and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't really see any point in getting into this argument about DNA molecules, master's degree and shit. It's not what I'm referring to. DNA feels. That was really kind of a stupid remark, but he didn't really mean that DNA feels. So this really wasn't a very fruitful conversation, so I wasn't going to bother with it. LR is a silly person, ignore him. Well, that's kind of useless. Imelda Marcos isn't dead yet. Imelda Marcos isn't dead yet. Well, she might as well be, right? Anyway, well done, Gary. You kicked his ass, man, to be serious. He was very emotional and threw a lot of insults. Well, why don't you listen to Luddite's video, right? It goes beyond incredulity. Okay, he used retarded. He used all kinds of, offensive language. So again, fuck you. That's just bullshit, right? It's a response video to a video calling me retarded and stupid and all these other words. So fuck you. This is just nonsense. I guess that counts as ass kicking on YouTube, though. What I did was explain and demonstrate quite obviously that he's a pompous ass, and that not only is he veiling, he's just veiling what is silly philosophy in complex language, and he's not even doing that well. Anyway, he called out Luddite on his elitist bullshit. Same thing goes for you. This is not philosophy classroom. No one wants to waste their time trying to interpret all your jargon. It's not about jargon. It's about understanding the argument. Oh, please. You can't see how that doesn't make any sense. If you're going to argue with people and you know who the people are you're arguing with, again, like I said, what's the point? Are you claiming that that 99% of the YouTube audience is a bunch of pious and pompous ivory tower intellectuals who talk like Luddite talks in his videos? Is that your argument? No, we know what the audience is. If you don't want to know about things like that, don't read my comments, okay? Whatever that means. And you sneakily get other people to make videos on topics in relation to Gary, which you have people argue against Gary. You're timid to make stand for intelligence, which you have very little of. No, I'm not. Jeez, that was a really great comeback. Alright, let's get to this other section of to be seriousizing. Luddite returns to referring to utilitarian idea of hedonic calculus. Well, gee, it's a response video to me. He's telling me what my philosophy is. So isn't that kind of a straw man, the ultimate straw man? You're going to tell me that I have to defend somebody else's philosophy who I haven't defended, who I haven't argued in favor of, who I have no association with whatsoever, and yet I have to defend him. So isn't this just red baiting? Isn't this going back to like if I want to be a socialist, I have to defend Lenin and Stalin? This is just bullshit. It was developed by Jeremy Bentham as a method of estimating pleasures and pain. Who cares? Bentham also thought that the extent of pleasure or pain could be extended to any number of persons. Well, who cares? Again, why is this a response video where I'm called retarded, and yet now you're telling me I'm retarded because I'm not defending a philosophy I don't advocate for? What sense does this make? From this, he developed a utilitarian moral theory in which right and wrong could be determined by figuring out the greatest amount of pleasure in the world at large. Well, again, the greatest amount of pleasure. Now, how does that have something to do with my philosophy, which is, strictly speaking, seeking fail-safe? Negative utilitarians are an attempt to reverse of this. Least suffering. Well, then why isn't he arguing that, right? Instead of hedonic calculus, which is focused on pleasure. So you're conceding that hedonic calculus is focused on pleasure by the guy who invented it. And then you, as a side remark, expound, well, yes, you could use negative utilitarianism to completely reverse that asymmetry. Well, maybe that's what I'm doing, so why should I have to argue hedonic calculus? I'm not doing hedonic calculus. I'm doing fail-safe calculus or risk-averse calculus. Yeah. Utilitarian. Okay, so right-wing hate speech. Utilitarian idea of hedonic calculus. It was developed. Well, anyway. It was thought of in some ancient time. Then it was rejected right away by everyone. This Epicurean garbage. Who cares, but yeah, whatever. You are certainly living up to your channel name. Epicureanism and hedonic calculus are not the same thing at all. Hedonic calculus may have had existed in some undeveloped form before Bentham, but he is the one who developed it into a fresh out theory, into a fleshed out theory. It's also often called philalic calculus. Oh, great. If you want to claim it existed as a complete thought system before, again, who cares? Why do I have to have any conversation about any of this crap? I don't advocate a calculus. I don't establish any need to establish numbers to place on this crap. I'm arguing about what it is in its substance, and what I'm saying is there's two kinds of value. There's a value that's real, like suffering, and there's a value that's fake, like I want a Lamborghini. One of them is completely disposable in your own brain. It only exists in your brain. I want the human race to survive. See, now that value, that want, only exists in people's brains. It doesn't have a correlate in reality. There's nothing in reality that needs human beings to exist. Okay? So there's a big difference. Anyway. Oh yeah, let's calculate some hedonism. I almost forgot. That's not the same thing at all. But whatever. I mean, I've made the point as clear as I can make it. It's not a benign word. It's like a word like fascism or something else. And if you attach it to somebody, they have a right to be offended. It's hedonic calculus. If you're interested in hedonism, philosophy is probably not your natural habit. Well, again, you're going to call something hedonic and then call hedonism and make distinctions between these two words and pretend that that makes sense, that hedonism isn't represented by hedonic. So again, what can you do with people who are going to abuse language like this? So yes, you're a pedophile, and by that I mean you pick up immature pieces of paper. I say to you what I said to, whatever. If you don't want to read the comment on philosophy, then don't read mine, okay? Well, whatever. It's graffiti on the fucking wall, bitch. I mean, really. If you're going to graffiti on a wall and then claim people don't read it if it bothers you, isn't that kind of silly? I mean, realistically, yeah, I think it's kind of silly. Then provide concrete sources for your claim. Both vehement and other forms of negative utilitarianism have major problems in practice. So says I, Queen of the World. Why don't you provide concrete sources for your claim? Why don't you provide concrete sources for your claim? This might not be clear. If it's not, I'd be happy to try to clarify to the best of my ability, which will be to do what? Cite some other person's opinion? Well, Joseph Bigelbaum says in his book, Shit, I Got Shit for Brains, that, yeah, that other guy's right. Is that how it works? In Mendham, I admire your patience with people like the individual you are debating in this video. The person you are addressing is clearly diminished intelligence. Well, he's not diminished intelligence, whatever. He's a manipulative weasel and a shithead, but whatever. Whatever. It appears you are wasting your clearly superior intelligence when you engage with empty and selfish minds like this one in this video. Well, whatever. Go find the mind I'm supposed to engage with, please. Go find the minds worthy of engagement, and I'll go engage them. But they're not very engaging is the problem. The minds worthy of engagement aren't very engageable. Argue the argument, not jargon. If you don't understand it, that's your own problem. Whatever, I understand it fine, that's not my argument. My argument is no one else is going to understand it, and it's certainly, I'm going to make it clear that when you use certain words, that all you're using those words for is manipulation. You're a propagandist, okay? Arguing the argument is not propaganda, and your friend Ludite Return is a propagandist, and so are you. X knowledge is free X. You're a lousy pedophile. Anyway, monstrous one. I'm kind of yeah, this isn't even fun. I don't like anybody. Anyway, let's see if we can do one more maybe. Let's see. Mendham website, that ain't what I want. Alright, beyond poetry and platitudes. Let's see, we got a little more time left. Oh, there's Anaconavad remarks. Well, anyway, we'll do some of this stuff. I don't know, maybe I should start at the bottom. Yep, that's what you should do, Gary. Sagittarius guy, we're not going to bother with him. Do you seriously think that Nietzsche places no value on suffering at 9:15? So this was a rhetorical question, apparently, because he answers it later. But I mean, obviously, when I said value and suffering, I was obviously implying that he puts no positive, I mean, like negative value on suffering. He doesn't think suffering is a bad thing. That was the point I'm making. Quite obviously. My view of the master-slave thing, I would put it as Aristo's slave. Well, it doesn't matter. He said master, so whatever. But if you want to change it, fine. Since there is no imperative for Nietzsche's master to actually enslave anybody. But yeah, see, that was his point, though. He made it clear that exploitation, all right, that was the word he used. He used the word exploitation, or whatever the German equivalent is. So he was really explicit about that that's the mechanism. All right, exploitation is life. That's what he said. All right, so let's understand that it clearly was a master-slave relationship. All right, exploitation is the acceptable price. That was what he said explicitly. Exploitation is more about one's reaction to one's circumstances. Are you going to attempt to accept the apparent Sisyphean nature of our existence, or are you going to attempt to master the situation? Notice I say attempt in both cases, because becoming a slave isn't any easier or harder than becoming Aristo's. Well, whatever. I mean, this whole, let's just neutralize it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you live to be, 22 years old and you're beaten and whipped every day, or you sit around and, drink fruit punch and, look up people's girls' skirts. I mean, it's just, it does matter. And it does matter when you gain your gratification at something else's expense. That is a important concept. So this just doesn't mean anything. The attrition that Nietzsche would accept for the creation of one fine grape, he would kill 1,000,000 grapes. He glorified examples out of nature in which attrition rates could be preposterously high. Let's say the average attrition rate is, 500, 1 in 500. So for the average organism, there are 500 babies born, only one survives to maturation. Who knows what the real average is? I don't know. I'm just making up a number. But I mean, there are preposterous attrition rates in nature. And he's basically saying, yes, let's have the battlefield covered in blood. Let's ruin 1,000 lives if we have to have that one great soldier at the end still standing. That one soldier somehow is worth all that failure. And I'm saying, no, he isn't, because the exception's going to become the rule. There's no way of escaping that. Again, the the TV was wiped out by the color TV, and then the flat screen, and then, the three-dimensional will take over, and something else will take over. The exception will always just become the sheep. Who cares? That wasn't what he was talking about anyway. Oh, what was he talking about? Well, anyway, I did mention the master-slave thing, but only in the context that he basically picked on both circumstances. Again, there's no real value in a philosophy that does this. Okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to rag on white people and I'll rag on black people. Now, it makes it seem like I'm saying something interesting and controversial, but it means nothing. So I'm not taking a side. I mean, it's just so, like I said, I can complain about anybody's clothes. I can complain about anybody's shoes. Just show me a pair of shoes and I'll complain about them. Who the hell can't do that? And that's all Nietzsche did. There's just nothing. It's just ragging on every single thing he looked at. He just found something and he ragged on it. Who the hell can't do that? But that's not how you demonstrate or prove something to be inferior or correct. That isn't how you figure out what the right answer is. Alright, anyway, at Efilist. How could you possibly make the claim that Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't placing value on suffering? He wasn't placing negative value on it. I mean, I clearly made the point, okay? He'll accept preposterously horrible attrition rates. He'll accept terrible, awful prices being paid for the silly accomplishment of somebody holding their sword up and saying, I win. I mean, he would accept gladiator arenas again. Yes, he'd say, great. Yeah, lions, bulls, have human beings fight with everything, because every fight they fight can only make them stronger, blah, 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 which is a crock of shit anyway. I mean, really, okay, let me stick some pencils in your eyes and see how much stronger you are when you're blind. And then I'll shove some in your ears, and then we'll see how much stronger you are when you're deaf. His interpretations were that suffering and tragedy were intrinsic to life. Well, yeah, right. And what he's saying is they're intrinsic to life, and let's just accept it, because life is obviously more important than suffering. It's obviously more important that human beings exist than things suffer. So it's just egoism. That's all it is. If we were talking about Martians and you said, well, it's intrinsic, Martians must enslave other civilizations, it's just the way it is. Well, yeah, I guess you'd just be fine with that as long as you weren't its victim, right? As long as you weren't the food the Martians were harvesting. But imagine nihilistic ethics in the hands of Martians as they came to Earth. Good luck, fella. That's the last thing you want somebody. Don't be sending no Nietzsche to the goddamn Mars, because you certainly don't want the Martians, if there are some Martians hiding underground, you certainly don't want them reading that shit. He's clearly recognizing that its importance, but obviously didn't take it to extremes. Well, what's the extreme, really? I mean, it's just so stupid. You're going to tell me what the extreme is. You know what the right amount of suffering is. Fuck you. Especially the right amount to impose on me. Who the hell are you to tell me what I should accept? Or what I must accept because some fucktard says I will play God. Fuck you. Also, he was a nihilist to Christianity. Well, duh. Thus, his famous humans created God. Well, duh. I mean, man, you can't get more useless that second sentence. Where have I argued that he was a Christian, you stupid retard? I mean, he's obviously not a Christian. He's obviously just done what all you fucking fake atheists keep doing, which is making a DNA molecule God. The DNA can do no wrong. It's Mr. DNA. Mr. DNA knows what he's doing. Alright, well, there's a whole big string of crap after this comment by Craphead. Oh, Brett Keane, yeah. FLV is having issues. MP4, no, it didn't work either. Anyway. You don't have any goals or dreams anymore, Mendham. You're done with life, already dead. That's why you can't appreciate true accomplishment anymore. For you, it's all nil, all nothing. Well, whatever, right? That's why I make videos, I make arguments, I do all this shit. It's because it's all over for me. Well, sorry, wrong. But for the women who started as a poor orphan with nothing and worked her way up as a dishwasher multi-millionaire, well, see, multi-millionaire, right? So you can talk about this dishwasher shit, but you don't become a multi-millionaire by washing dishes. You become a multi-millionaire by screwing people over. You hire workers, you make money off the workers. That's the only way you can be one of these multi-millionaires, Unless you just, happen to invent something in a petri dish on your desk, like cure for cancer or something. But otherwise, you just can't become a multi-millionaire without exploiting somebody. It's just the way it is. You're either screwing the customers or you're screwing your workers. But that's the only way you get multi-million dollars. So fuck this bitch. By the power of her own will alone. Oh no, by the power of exploitation. For the Lamborghini means a lot because it's her childhood dream and it reminds her that she has reached the full potential and can be proud. Well, again, you're just ignoring the argument in the video, okay? The fact is, it's not going to make her happy, shithead. Go find some people that have all this shit. I'm saying, go find these millionaires that are all deliriously happy. Sorry, you're not going to find them. You're going to find a bunch of drunks and a bunch of chasers. So fuck you, you're wrong again. Plus, the novelty of the Lamborghini wears off eventually. Pretty soon the dishwasher lady is going to move on to bolder objectives until her so-called goals, achievements become a lot more decadent and flamboyant to the point of becoming utterly grotesque. Well, that's a more honest explanation. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into this whole argument, but obviously We are insatiable, so quit pretending we're not. We are. What's the true accomplishment? Isn't the creation of an orphan already a failure? Yeah, I mean, it started with failure. This whole idea of having to struggle is stupid, but the inefficiency of becoming a preposterously wasteful glutton is, how's that an accomplishment? Oh, I need $60,000 a week. I have to spend $60,000 a week just to be barely comfortable. Doesn't that make you just worthless? I mean, worthless in this world? When I can make thousands of people very happy and very comfortable with the money you're squandering every week? That would be silly. Anyway, so what? She fulfilled her potential and accomplished her goals. Every life comes to an end, but so what? That only makes the short time that we have more precious. Yeah, well, it's not precious at all if the short time you have is being destroyed by some greedy motherfucking cunt stealing all the goodies and all the food and all the comforts and all the labor and all the rest of it. So fuck you. You're also a defender of these grotesque rich people. I think I'll just block you. You're disgusting. Let's see. Block. Yeah, fuck you. Die soon and awfully hard. Alright, let's get to Anaconda. Nietzsche deals with the dilemma in eternal recurrence. Yeah, well, he doesn't deal really with it. I mean, it's just a concession to the fact that, what comes around goes around. No, that's not even his argument. His argument is that, okay, because there's no God, that somehow the universe is eternal, infinite. He doesn't have any evidence for that. And he certainly doesn't have any evidence that life is infinite. That this kind of chemistry always pops up, that consciousness always pops up. So that doesn't. His argument for eternal recurrence is not a very deep or scientifically coherent one. So I think that's just bullshit. All right. What he accounts for the landfill generation, disease, futility.